The other issue that arises from this is the question of whether and to what extent there will be a mandate from the league that Deshaun Watson undergo counseling. And I suspect if there's any discipline eventually imposed on Watson, whenever it happens, now, later, whenever, and we've laid out all the different permutations for what the NFL could do, one of the requirements will be that he undergo counseling. Here's Watson from earlier today on the question of whether he would be willing to engage in any type of counseling as a result of the behaviors that resulted in these allegations.
Personally, I mean, even if you do feel you're innocent of these and you've never done any of these things and the Browns don't feel like you have, will you be willing to do things, personally in terms of counseling or whatever else it would take to show that you'll go the extra mile to make sure nothing like this ever happens again?
It's hard for me to say the counseling part because I don't have a problem. I don't have an issue. And that's what I've been saying from the beginning. So this situation is definitely is tough and it's very difficult. But me as a having a problem going to counseling and things like that, I'm willing to talk to people about certain situations to make sure I'm not getting back in this. But like I said before, I never assaulted anyone, never disrespected anyone. I've always been respectful, and that's what I've always stood on, and that's who I am as a person.
When in doubt, go back to the card. When in doubt, go back to the talking points. And again, this is a young guy trying to navigate some murky waters. It's hard for me to reconcile, I don't need counseling because I don't have a problem, to, well, if they want me to talk to somebody so I don't fall back into this. Well, that's the problem. They don't want me to fall back into the problem that isn't a problem. I mean, it becomes very dog-chasing tail. But the bottom line is he's going to have to at some point, at a bare minimum, because even if, let's say the NFL doesn't take any action until these cases are resolved, and he goes 22 for 22, one trial after another. Think about that, too. Think about that logistically. You don't try them all at once. And if you try them one after another, it's going to take you half a year to do all these trials. 22 weeks. These, maybe you could do 2 a week. I don't know. It's still taking 3 months to do it. But let's say he wins all of them. The NFL is still going to do something about this if they're going to pay any attention to the precedent with Ben Roethlisberger, because it's not about whether or not you ultimately broke the law. It's whether or not you're engaged in behaviors that require intervention. And it's obvious that if you are seeking massages from 40 different people, and some of those are turning into consensual sexual encounters, and 22 of them are resulting in claims of affirmative misconduct by you, there is something for which you need counseling. And that's where the disconnect is between this defense of Deshaun Watson, he hasn't done anything wrong, he's innocent until proven guilty, to the circumstances crying out that something's not right. And Dee Haslam, co-owner of the Browns, said in the Zoom call today, I hope counseling is something he would consider. She'll leave it up to the experts, but believes in counseling for everybody. Well, yes, counseling could be useful for everybody. We all have issues, and that is a fair assessment. But at the same time, there's enough undisputed evidence regarding what happened to Deshaun Watson to suggest that counseling would be necessary, even if it's counseling for him to deal with the stress of the last year. Some form of counseling would be helpful for him right now.
Yes, and that's exactly the point that Dee Haslam was making on that Zoom call, that's part of why she feels like it could at least be beneficial for Deshaun Watson, not necessarily stemming from the actions or the allegations and all of those different types of things, but just from the simple stress of, you did not play football last year, and that's something that you love. That's something that you are employed to do. It's something that we all know Deshaun Watson is indisputably very, very good at, is going out there and throwing the ball on a football field. So it's not necessarily just about the allegations for something that he could receive counseling, right? It's more basically the entire circumstances of what's been going on in his life. And that's the point Dee Haslam made. But I think, at the same time, when, as we've been saying, his lawyer has admitted that some of these massage therapy sessions turned into consensual sexual encounters, it's at least worth talking to somebody about the fact that massage therapists are not sex workers. So, at least in my opinion, that's where at least some minuscule form of counseling could come in there to drive that point home.
Yeah, Deshaun, you're under the misimpression that when you go get a massage, it's going to take a turn that is not normal and it shouldn't be expected. and you shouldn't be confused when it doesn't happen. At a minimum, that's the kind of counseling he
Yes.
needs. And he also needs a different kind of counseling as it relates to what he needs to do, because I'm telling you, he needs to settle these cases, because I believe the NFL eventually, if he doesn't settle these cases, will put him on the commissioner exempt list, and he won't play this year until those cases are resolved. And I'm not sure the people advising him understand that. And I know that there are people high up in the league office that are sending that message. I don't know if it's being sent loudly enough or directly enough for Deshaun Watson to understand. You're not just going to be able to defend yourself and try to clear your name and play football. There's a good chance the NFL, which uses paid leave as a PR tool and nothing else, it's a way to take the heat out of the hot kitchen. We don't have to worry about Deshaun Watson being on NBC, CBS, ABC, ESPN, Fox, or Amazon, and no one has to acknowledge the elephant in the room because he's not in the stadium. That's why they do it. They would do it. For 22 cases, they would do it.
Could they do it before the start of the offseason program or at the start of the offseason program?
They could, but here's the balance. They don't like to do it until they have to, because the mere act of doing it creates a negative news cycle. The mere act of doing it opens the NFL up to criticism from people who say, well, how can you do this? He hasn't been found to have done anything wrong. Why are you doing this to him? What about others that haven't had this happen to them? I mean, so they'd rather do nothing as long as they can. And I don't know that the offseason program will be enough to get them to do it. But remember when Tyreek Hill had that thing a couple of years ago where it was unclear what was going on? He and the team agreed he wouldn't come around. And I don't know, maybe they'll agree that Deshaun Watson will work out on his own. If I'm the Browns, though, I kind of want to integrate the guy into the team. So that's just something to keep an eye on. But the offseason program's coming. And we'll see if anything happens tangibly between now and then.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.